Hello everybody, it's Robbie, and I thought I'd come to you blog style today. I'm trying to kill some time before my son gets out of his VBS, which will be going on all week. So I'm 30 minutes from home up here by our church, so it seems silly to go all the way home and then come all the way back. So I had my Chick-fil-A, so I'm happy, and I thought I would take a minute to do this video while I had some time. So I wanted to update you on what we're going to be doing different for our 2019-2020 school year. I have two boys that are still homeschooling. One is 16 going into 11th grade. The other one is 8, almost 9, and he's going into 3rd grade, but doing some 4th grade stuff, so 3rd-ish 4th grade. And if you've been following me at all on my channel for a while, you might know that we've been schooling through a local charter school that has an independent study model. So it's officially not homeschooling, at least from a legal standpoint, but it's about as close as you can get through the public school system. The independent study model allows the families to choose the curriculum that they're going to be using. There's a teacher on record that approves those selections. And then the family schools the children at home using the curriculum that they've chosen. Some charters have more restrictions on curriculum choices than others. Ours is pretty generous. There's no faith-based or religious content allowed in the selections. So it's taken us a while to kind of find a good fit. We are a Christian family, so we've done our own, Bible curriculum and that sort of thing. But the curriculum for the core subjects has been faith neutral or secular. So with the exception of Beautiful Feet, they allowed us to purchase the books, but I had to purchase the guide on my own since the guide is what contained the Christian content. So we've been doing this for 5 years through this charter. And so if you've seen some of my epic unboxing videos, or some of the videos I've done where I've reviewed curriculum that we've used throughout the year, I get a lot of comments about how people wish that they had that kind of charter available to them in their area, or how do I get enrolled into a charter like this. And so I'll just cover that real quickly and just say it really depends on your state. So some states offer this model of charter school, but most don't yet. Most charters, virtual charters, are limited to online curriculum. And because we have book-based curriculum available to us, it's kind of unique. I know California has a lot of these, Colorado, Alaska, and there are probably others, but those are the only ones. This is Wisconsin, so Wisconsin does. So, you'll just have to check with your state. But we are going to independently homeschool this next year rather than utilize the charter school. And it's not because we've had a bad experience with this charter. We've had a really wonderful experience, actually, with the charter. And, we've taken us a little while, but we have found some really good curriculum options. I know with my oldest, we went through the charter for a year in high school. And high school's a little different. They're issuing transcripts and they're keeping grades, official grades. Anything up through 8th grade is considered pass-fail rather than grade, ABCD grades. Hopefully no F's, right? But anyway, so they were restricted to online curriculum for the high school years back in that time frame, and my son didn't like it. So we homeschooled him for his sophomore, his junior, and his senior year independently. But then my middle son, when he got to be a 9th grader, I had approached the school administrator and asked if we had any other options besides strictly online courses, because my son didn't want to do that. He said it would give him a headache to have to be on the computer all the time. The workload is, to me, excessive, a lot of busy work, and it just didn't, I just knew that it wouldn't be a good fit. So we were able to do some different things. We were able to continue with our teaching textbooks, and we were able to screenshot all of our test our test screens, screens in the grade book of teaching textbooks that show what the grades are, and also the daily work. They were the daily lessons. We screenshot all of that and submitted it to our teacher on record, and we were able to use a book-based science program, and she allowed me specifically to sort of pilot this program where we did a blended learning for science. And we had, the first year we had 5 students who would come to the building once a week to do the labs, and I was in charge of setting all of that up and administering the lab experiments, and then they did all their other work at home. And I had to set up all the schedules and plan out all the coursework and do all of that. And it was really a lot of fun. It was nice that he was able to get that experience. You know, it was kind of a nice combination of work at home plus the full-on lab experiments, you know, in building, and to be around other students, you know, while I did labs and have lab partners and that sort of thing. So we did that, and we had planned to do chemistry as well, but we didn't have enough kids. And initially we did, but there were scheduling conflicts. Some of the kids, because they had to come to the building and they were out of the area, you know, there were some scheduling concerns, and we couldn't make it work, because obviously we can't do multiple days for labs. We had to pick a day, and the day we chose ended up eliminating a couple of students, and in the end we only had 2 students who were going to do it, and they said we couldn't do it because we just didn't have enough participation. And so we'd already selected the materials and planned for the labs, and so the administrator allowed us to do that at home. So we were able to get the full experience of doing chemistry with lab experiments and that sort of thing. We got to do it at home. And I know there's a lot of, you know, I know Apology and some other curriculum allow for that, you know, have it in the program where you do labs at home and you can buy the kits for them and stuff like that. But, you know, through the virtual charter, that's not normal. Normally you're doing it online, you're doing dry labs, you know, you're just analyzing and interpreting data and that sort of thing. You're not getting to actually do the experiments. So for us to be able to do that through the charter was a treat. But I ran into some of the same roadblocks with him that I ran into with the older one, in that he basically had gotten so many credits at that point that the majority of the credits for the next 2 years were going to end up being mostly electives, and the electives ended up being mostly online, because we didn't, I mean, there's only so much they would let us do, you know, at home, book-based at home, I should say. So the rest were going to have to be electives and or courses that he would take at the high school, and I didn't want to go that route. So we had decided early on in the school year last year that would be the last year at the virtual school, and that we would independently homeschool him this next year. But the younger one, you know, I had no plans to do that with him. But the school's been, you know, progressively growing and changing, and it seems like every year they get a little more strict on what curriculum can be used and how many portfolio samples have to be submitted, And, initially when we started, the school was very much like, how do I want to say this? Very homeschool friendly. I mean, it was, most of the people that attended were homeschoolers who just wanted to utilize tax dollars and be able to get their curriculum paid for. And so we had a lot of freedom in our ability to just school the way we, wanted to. And every year, everything gets a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter. And, if you're a homeschool family listening to this who's been sort of anti-charter, or anti-public education in every form, you're probably going, ha, I knew it. I told you so. Even though you may not have specifically told me so. But you know what I'm saying. It's something I've heard over and over and over again from the homeschool community that, charter schools are nothing but school at home. It's just public school at home. And it's not really, homeschooling. And from a legal standpoint, I get that. It's not. But it's been a blessing to our family. We moved here because of an unemployment situation. And this is where we ended up obtaining employment. And it was just happened to be where his mother lived, in this state. We moved over 700 miles to come up here. And that's a long story I won't get into, but it ended up being a God thing to get us here. We didn't know it at first, but it was. But I had come from a charter school. I'd pulled my kids out of private school, and my husband lost his job. I used a charter school for a year, and it was all virtual. Everything was online, and I decided I didn't want to do that. I was going to homeschool independently, and then I found out about the school here that has the independent study model. And it was a real blessing because, number one, I had no idea where to start. I had very little money to work with. Truly, I didn't even know where the money was going to come from. And so it was a perfect fit for us, and it allowed us to really experiment with curriculum. I mean, truly, it did. Without that expense, you invest in a curriculum, and you feel like you have to use it because you invested in it. And although when the charter bought stuff, we used it, we still had a lot more freedom from a financial standpoint to experiment with curriculum. But I was getting to the place. So why did I switch? Why are we switching? That's the big question, right? I was beginning to feel like I was getting, number one, dependent on the charter. Because really, what if the changes got to the point where I truly didn't feel comfortable being there anymore, and I was dependent on them and felt like I couldn't do it on my own? That was starting to concern me because, having that kind of budget to work with and getting to spend, getting to buy a lot of the more expensive curriculums. I mean, there's just no getting around it. Timberdoodle is expensive. The Bookshark is expensive. All About Reading is expensive. I mean, I guess it's, relative depending upon your situation. But, when you start adding all that stuff up, we're doing Bookshark, and we're doing Timberdoodle, and we're doing All About Reading, and we're doing, we're getting a subscription box. We're getting to do classes up at the school one day a week where he gets art and music and STEM and PE and all of that, gets to do that once a week. I mean, that would be a pretty hefty expense. And I was really starting to feel like I needed to at least explore my options, because if things get tighter and tighter and the restrictions on curriculum continue, it might get to a point where I really don't want to be restricted like that. And I wanted to just see what my options were. Not necessarily for this upcoming year, but for the future. And we had moved out of the district, so it meant that the weekly classes were farther away than they were before. All of his friends were farther away. It was getting more and more difficult to arrange for those meetups, for him to get together with his friends. And also a lot of the people were pulling out of the program because they didn't like the new restrictions on curriculum, and they didn't like the new requirements on portfolio. I mean, when you look at language arts, and you've got vocabulary, and you've got spelling, and you've got reading, and you've got literature, and you have grammar, and you have writing, you know, you can end up with a lot of work if you've got multiple kids trying to come up with all of those materials. And, you know, sometimes, you know, lessons are done orally, or they're done in groups, or they're done, you know, with back and forth discussion and that sort of thing. And more, it's hard to give writing samples or give samples of some of that stuff. So anyway, that was really long-winded, but I started looking into our options, and as I'm looking at some of the Christian curriculum that's out there, I started to get this sadness about not being able to use those things if I didn't leave the charter. And especially when it came to history and reading, because I felt like that the other options, you know, just eliminated the idea of faith for the most part, and especially in the reading, you know, without reading stories that included illustrations of people living out their faith, you know, it could, in a young person like my youngest, you know, really make him feel weird about the way he lives his life, because, you know, we are a faith-based family, and it is a big part of our lives. So seeing these stories where families are living out their faith like we are, you know, normalizes it. And I really started to feel like that was important to me. Science also is important to me. But I will say we decided to stay with the charter part-time. They had actually already purchased our science and our math curriculum. And our math is through Schiller, and it's a kit that has multiple years worth of math in it, and I would have had to repurchase that on my own, and I didn't want to do that because we weren't switching our math. And then the science was through Bookshark, and I was really happy with that for now. And I have other science, actually. I have plenty of science for the next few years, and I could have done without it, but I really like the program, and I like the materials that came with that level 3 that we're going to be using from Bookshark. So I decided to stay part-time, or I should say I decided to ask them if we could stay part-time, because we're no longer in district, so it's up to them whether or not they want to allow us to stay. And I'm sure the fact that, you know, that they'd already purchased that stuff for us was a factor. I don't know. But anyway, they allowed us to stay part-time. So we're doing the 2 classes through the charter, and everything else is going to be on us independently. So I have already filmed the video showing what we're going to be using this next year, but I wanted to get this up first because it might not make sense to see some of the differences in the curriculum choices if you are familiar with the channel, and I just kind of wanted to update and let you know what's going on. So thank you so much for hanging out with me in my car, and if you want to see more videos like this, please do subscribe and click the little bell, and I'll be talking to you soon. Have a great day.